Hello students, let's discuss reading activity nature on display in American zoos. We have two type of questions 1 to 7, true false not given, and question 8 to 13, one word only. Passage is labeled. When passage is labeled, it means you will have type B questions. And type B questions are not in order. But I have already told you that if the passage is labeled and true, false not given and one word only questions are given, these questions will be in order. Only which para contain the following information and match the headings. These two type of questions are type B question, whether the passage is labeled or not. So we can start from any type of question. Let's start from true, false, not given. Question number 1. The concepts on which the Philadelphia Zoo was based soon became unfashionable. Let's find the answer in the passage. If it agrees with the information, we will write true. If it doesn't agree, we will write false. The first zoo in the United States opened in Philadelphia in 1874. By 1940, there were zoos in more than 100 American sites. The Philadelphia Zoo was more thoroughly planned and better financed than most of the hundreds of zoos that would open later. And then he says, it embodied ideas how to build a zoo that stayed consistent for decades. This is your answer. That stayed consistent for decades, so it didn't become unfashionable. So we will write false. Keep in mind, while solving true, false, not given one word only, if these are 13 questions, you have to read only 13 lines. Otherwise, you won't be able to solve 40 questions in 60 minutes until you know the tips and tricks to solve reading. Question number 2. The opening of zoos coincided with a trend for people to live in urban areas. Means that the opening of zoo coincided with a trend of people to live in urban areas. In the same passage, the very next line, the zoos came into existence in the late 19th century during the transition of the United States from a rural and agricultural nation to an industrial one. This is your answer. This answer agrees the statement. He says that opening of zoos coincided with the trend for people to live in urban areas. And in the information he says the transition of the United States from a rural and agricultural nation to an industrial one. So this answer will be considered true. Question number 3. During the period when many zoos were opened, the study of natural history became more popular in universities than other scientific subjects. Let's see in the passage if there is any comparison. In passage C, at the same time, the fields of study which were previously thought of as natural history grew into separate areas such as taxonomy, experimental embryology, and genetics, each with its own experts and structures. So here is no mention, only branches are given. In question he says the study of natural history became more popular in universities than others. So there is no comparison when there is no mention. If there is no information on this, we will write not given. Question number 4. Cities recognized that new zoos were as significant an amenity as museums. Let's have a look. Is there any connection between zoos and museums? In passage D, the new zoos set themselves apart from traveling animal shows by stating their mission as the education and advancement of science in addition to recreation. Zoos presented zoology for the non-specialist, a time when the intellectual distance between amateur naturalist and laboratory-oriented zoologist was increasing. They attracted wide audience and quickly became a feature of every growing and forward-thinking city. They were emblems of civic pride on a level of importance with art museums, natural history museums, and botanical gardens. So we will write true in front of 4 because cities recognized that new zoos were as significant an amenity as museums. Question number 5. Between 1940 and 1960, some older zoos had to move to new sites in order to expand. Let's find the word 1940 and 1960. Yes, in passage F, the very first line. Although many histories of individual zoos describe the 1940s through the 1960s as a period of stagnation, and in some cases there was neglect, new zoos continued to be set up all over the country in 1940s and 1950s. The first zoo designed specifically for children were built. In the question, he says between 1940 and 60, some old zoo had to move to new sites. And in the passage, he says it was a period of stagnation, and in some cases, there was neglect. New zoos continue to set all over the country. So here is no mention that zoos had to move to new sites. So we will write not given in front of 5. Question number 6. In 1970s, new ways of funding zoos were developed. Let's find word 1970. Yes, in passage G. By the 1970s, a new wave of reform was stirring. Popular movements for environmentalism and animal welfare called attention to endangered species and to zoos that did not provide adequate care for their animals. Many zoos that had been supported entirely by municipal budgets began recruiting private financial support and charging admission fees. So this is true. In 1970s, new ways of funding zoos were developed. These are the ways: private support and charging admission fees. Question number 7. There has been serious disagreement amongst historians about the role of first zoos. Let's see whether historians disagreed about the role of first zoos or not. In the last passage H, the very first line, although zoos were popular and proliferating institutions in the United States at the turn of the 20th century, historians have paid little attention to them. In the question, he says historian disagreed, but in the passage, he says they paid little attention. Little mean no attention at all. So we will write false in front of 7. This is the end of true, false, not given. Let's move on to one word only. And students, I have already told you that first of all, you have to read instructions. Choose no more than one word. If you write 2 words, your answer will be considered wrong. And in true, false, not given, sometimes students write yes, no, not given. They will also be considered wrong. So you have to read instructions very carefully. Question number 8. Here he mentions up to 1940. That is a clue word for us that we have to read what happened in 1940. More mammals and birds exhibited than dash. Let's find 1940. Yes, in passage E. Most American zoos were founded and operated as part of the public parks administration. They were dependent on municipal funds and they charged no admission fee. They tended to assemble as many different mammal and bird species as possible, along with a few reptiles. So other mammals were more, but there were a few reptiles exhibiting 1 or 2 specimens of each, and they competed with each other to become the first to display a rarity like rhinoceros. So we will write reptiles in question 8. Question number 9. Dash were very popular animals in many zoos at one time. We will also write in 1940s because we are in the same box. In the very next line, in the constant efforts to attract the public to make return visits, certain types of display came in and out of fashion. For example, dozens of zoos built special island for their large populations of monkeys. This is your answer. Monkeys were very popular animals in many zoos at one time because they want to attract their audience so that they visit again and again to say many different things. So they got monkeys. Question number 10. Now we have to look what happened in 1940s and 1950s. This is a clue word that will help us find our answers. Zoos started exhibiting animals according to their dash and where they came from. Let's read 1930 and 40. Yes, in 1940s and 1950s, the first zoo designed specifically for children were built, some with the appeal of farm animals. An increasing number of zoos tried new ways of organizing their displays in addition to the traditional approach of exhibiting like kinds together. Zoo planners had a new approach of putting animals in groups according to their continent of origin and designing exhibits showing animals of particular habitats. This is our answer. We will write habitats in question 10. Question number 11. In 1960s, some zoos categorized animals by dash. Let's find the word 1960. Yes, in the very next line in passage F. During the 1960s, a few zoos arranged some displays according to animal behavior. This is categorization. They also categorize the animal on the basis of behavior. We will write behavior in 11. Question number 12. In 1970s, we have to find 1970, then we will find the answer. Dash were employed following protest about animal care. 1970, yes, in G. By 1970, a new wave of reform was stirring. Popular movements for environmentalism and animal welfare called attention to endangered species and to zoos that did not provide adequate care for their animals. More projects were undertaken by research scientists and zoos began hiring full-time vets as they stepped up captive breeding programs. So they hired vets. Vet means veterinary doctors. So we will write vets in question 12. Vets were employed for following protest about animal care. Question number 13, last question. The 1980s onwards, the importance of dash became increased. Let's read 1980 in passage G, second last line. In prosperous 1980s and 19 zoos built realistic landscape immersion exhibits, many of them around the theme of the tropical rainforest, and increasingly conservation moved to forefront of zoo agenda. So the importance of conservation increased. We will write conservation in question 13. This is the end of Ielts reading.